Okay, this video is about how we give information and how information can speak for itself. It's specifically in informative speaking. So this also applies for persuasive speaking. But I find, so there's been a couple of people as I've been watching speeches in all of my classes that had a really hard time staying informative. And it was because they were so passionate about a topic. And so they're giving us, they're really digging in the harm and saying this is bad and this is, these atrocities, and they're using words like heinous and devastating. And even when they're saying factual things, right? So I'm like, the term obesity crisis, right? Or I'm trying to think of another one, saying that there is a problem with homelessness. It's a pretty non-controversial statement. Like, even though that right is pathos or an argument at some level, like that's a pretty factual statement. So one tip is put it in somebody else's mouth. So I've written that on so many people's feedback, like anytime you can quote someone, cite someone, right? Anytime, put it in somebody's mouth, okay? But that is the easiest way to make something informative, okay? Cite somebody. Um, Craft the information so you found it. Informative speaking is about finding things. And the reason I make a big deal about this is once we get to persuasive speaking, you're going to see that actual persuasion, so not what we think persuasion is, ranty rants, right? Actual persuasion is really hard, and it is mostly about solid information and how you frame that information for your audience. Because think about it. When was the last time you were persuaded by someone ranting their opinion to you? If anything, that typically backfires and you're persuaded against what they're trying to tell you. um, okay, so it is so tempting to make commentary. So say, use really pathos filled words, heinous, awful, bad, right? Or to say a stat and then go, isn't that ridiculous? Or isn't that huge? Some sort of commentary. And this is telling. You're trying to tell or get into the brains of your audience, right? But often when people tell us stuff that doesn't absorb, we want to be shown. So I always say, especially if you have an atrocity, right? Like, I've had a couple of people talk about Palestine. I've had a couple of people talk about drunk driving in Wisconsin, homelessness, um, uh, missing girls from marginalized communities. So we're talking something that is awful. Okay, maternal birth rate in Milwaukee. Look up the maternal birth death rate in Milwaukee. It's horrifying, specifically for Black women, and so it's so tempting to like try to convince the audience, even in an informative, this is a problem and it's bad. But you don't have to. You don't have to. Just show them the information. Think about it. When someone says to you, this many people have died because of this, like any person with a tiny bit of compassion is going to go, that's bad. So I made the video on contextualizing information and contextualizing numbers. That's the best way to show somebody how bad, how awful, how big, how impactful, how something is. The more that you can just make them understand the information, not comment on it, not tell them how it is, just tell them, right? So uh, if you're telling me how much something has increased and you show me a way to fully understand, like I am going to feel that myself. Or like if I'm unaware of the wage gap and you tell me how much less women or femme bodies make compared to men, as a woman I'm going to go, that sucks, right? Or like, so the more that you can get us to understand and feel that information. Now, when we get into persuasion, and then we're talking about emotional appeals and how to really, get in and make us feel that. But at some extent, information will speak to itself, especially especially when your audience is just unaware. So, right, when we talk about audience and you've got the target audience and um, then you've got the audience who's already doing what you want, and you can't persuade those people anyway, right? If you're trying to convince everybody to wear their seatbelt, the people who already wear their seatbelt 100% of the time aren't in your target audience. You literally can't persuade them. They're already doing it. You can't persuade the status quo, right? But if you've got people that just, seatbelt's a bad example here, but something like, I talk a lot about intersex surgeries that are done on babies. So babies will be born with multiple types of genitalia hormones that they don't neatly fit into the male box or, female, boy box, girl box, right? Boxes. And people just don't know this is happening. And so all you got to do is cite how often it happens. I like to tell people in this part of the country that it happens still at the University of Chicago Hospital, and that the number of these that are still happening and the negative effects. So they've done studies about how often those surgeries that are done without tiny human consent and usually without parents' sort of full knowledge. There's again been a lot of written about how parents are often coerced into this, don't fully understand. They're really scared. They're told that like the baby is going to get cancer and it's going to be bad and blah, blah, blah. But the research actually backs up I don't like the word opposite, but the reverse. So that it's usually the surgeries that are more likely to cause cancer, chronic UTIs, dysphoria, etc. That is not my opinion. That is all stuff that I have found that's actually very easy to find. And so this is a topic that, like, if people don't know this is going on, all you got to do is tell them the scenario, give them testimonies of intersex people that had these surgeries happen to them and how that negatively impacted their lives. I don't have to do anything, right? I think about my mom's friends will often, my mom has this one friend and she'll cross her arms and she'll go, I have a question. She kind of leans back and she'll ask me questions. And, I used to be really, really passionate about gender stuff. And I think I was, I know I was a little too intense for people. Well, now I know so much information and I'm just able to give them. And you really watch people go, huh, whoa, I didn't know that. And I mean, you can be so impactful and persuasive just using information. So that's why I'm really focusing on information, and you don't have to then dig in as much because let the information do its job and work for you. Bye.